G'day guys, Shawnee from Life and Tennis. In today's video, I'll be recapping the Sunshine Double that just was. So Indian Wells and Miami, which featured two surprise winners in Jack Draper winning Indian Wells and particularly Jakub Mensik winning his first Masters 1000 title in Miami. In this video today, I will focus on the ATP. But obviously, on the women's side, there were some very interesting results too, with Mira Andreeva winning Indian Wells and just continuing her amazing start to the year, and of course Aryna Sabalenka winning her 19th title and another feather on her cap in her career. What an amazing last couple of years she has had, and definitely still the player to beat, particularly on hard court. But today, we'll be talking about the men, the ATP. Starting with Indian Wells. So great tournament for Jack Draper. He took out the defending champion Carlos Alcaraz on his way to the title. In the process, in the final beating Holger Rune, he jumped into the top 10 for the first time in his career. He's now sitting at 7th in the world, and I think he's at 23 years old, the second youngest Brit to be in the top 10 after Andy Murray. So quite an achievement for Draper, who has had a very difficult, career up to this point. His struggles with injuries have been well documented. For years he's shown lots of promise, but nagging injuries have, stopped him from reaching his potential. I mean, he's only 23 years old, but for someone that young, he's just one of those players that unfortunately just has had a lot of injuries in his life. But finally it looks like he's starting to put together a really, really solid season, towards the back end of last year and the start of this year. So hopefully he can continue that run on into the year. Just to go into his background story, overcoming physical injuries has kind of been a part of Jack Draper's career for a long time. He broke into the top 50 in 2022, but then he only managed to play 28 competitive matches in 2023, basically just being injury played all year. So that sort of held him back a little bit then. Back end of last year, 2024, he had a solid run before he had to delay the start of his 2025 season due to tendonitis in his hip. But as I said, he had a great run in Indian Wells. And then in Miami, he had a shock loss to 19-year-old Jakub Mensik, who ended up going on to win the tournament, particularly impressively denying Novak Djokovic his 100th title in the final in two tie-break sets. And in fact, more impressively than that, he won all 7 of his tie-breaks that he faced during the tournament. So very impressive for the 19-year-old Czech. In fact, Miami featured a lot of upsets. That was kind of the theme of the week, with early round losses to players like Medvedev, Carlos Alcaraz, Draper, Rune, Tsitsipas and Rublev, just to name a few. So there are definitely a lot of shock results along the way. None more so than, Jakub Mensik, a 19-year-old, to go on and take out the title. The 19-year-old has gone under the radar, particularly with the rise of another teenage superstar in Brazilian João Fonseca. In winning the title in Miami, the young Czech made more history by becoming one of only 4 players to win his maiden title at Masters 1000 level. And when I actually looked up the names of the other 3 players that won their maiden title at Masters 1000 level, they're 3 players I've never heard of. So they basically didn't do much else in their career other than win a Masters 1000 title. And I'll list these players. They are, and please in the comments below, let me know if you have heard of these players or if there's any memories you have of them. Those players are Roberto Carretero, Chris Woodruff, and Albert Portas. So 3 relative unknowns compared to hopefully a player like Mensik that's going to have a long and successful career ahead of him. But I just thought that was very interesting that it wasn't 3 other names like obviously like the big 3 or other really famous names in tennis history. It was 3 players that are relatively obscure players, like your average tennis fan wouldn't have heard of any of those players. So very, very interesting that he's made history, that very unique type of history there. So hopefully now he starts to get the recognition he deserves, because I've watched Mensik probably for the last say half a year to a year, and always thought he's very, very talented. Obviously, I'm not going to claim that, I predicted that he'd go and win Miami and, have a great 2025. But from watching him at the Australian Open in particular, he was actually one of my picks for wildcard style player to go through and cause some damage, and he did well. I think he ended up losing in a 5-setter against Davidovich Fokina, the Spaniard's Davidovich Fokina. I think he had chances to win that match. So yeah, he could have gone even deeper, maybe 4th round quarterfinals, something like that. So yeah, he had a decent run at Oz Open. So I'd already seen him perform at the level and knew he was capable. And yeah, a lot's been talked about comparing Mensik to Novak, especially given that Novak is one of Mensik's idols. And yeah, his game style is very similar in many ways. And the one thing that I noticed that was almost probably the most similar to Novak's game is his ability to effortlessly change direction of the ball from the back of the court. To me, that was very Novak-esque, particularly going from, cross court, say backhand to cross court down the line. That was a shot that he implemented very, very successfully against Novak in the final. It's something that Novak generally does against other opponents. So it's interesting now to start to see these young players coming up that have kind of mirrored their style. Well, they haven't necessarily mirrored their game styles to Novak, but they definitely, you can tell they've incorporated it into their game, and they've basically become like modern versions of Novak. I mean, Sinner and Alcaraz are two prime examples of players that, particularly Sinner, I think. Carlos Alcaraz is probably more similar to Nadal, but Sinner is definitely a guy that you can tell he's modeled his game off, or like he seems like he's the new Novak or the modern Novak. Just a brick wall, but aggressive, and just he can rally all day, but he can also finish points and rip winners down the line, passing shots, lobs, coming into the net, all sorts of things. So yeah, these are the next breed of players. Those 3 or 4 guys that I just mentioned, I think, they're ones that I can see sustaining long and healthy careers. And you can throw, I guess, Jack Draper into that as someone who I think is going to be very, very solid as well. I hope he has a great rest of the year. And now that the Sunshine Double is wrapped up, we turn to the clay court swing, which kicks off in Monte Carlo this Sunday, April the 6th. So really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to, the clay court season. I know that it tends to bring in certain other players that peak around the clay season, particularly players like Stefanos Tsitsipas and a lot of the, Europeans and even some of the South Americans who thrive in clay court conditions, and usually a certain Russian Daniil Medvedev doesn't love the clay as much, so we tend to see him not hibernating, but maybe not doing as well as some of these other guys. So I'll be interested to see how the clay court season plays out. I know Sinner is still out and won't return until obviously Roland Garros, but yeah, there's still a good 3 or 4 tournaments to watch in the meantime before the French Open kicks off, so still lots of tennis coming up. But yeah, as always, guys, very, very keen to hear your feedback on the Sunshine Double, on Jack Draper or Jakub Mensik, or anyone that you've been sort of following lately, particularly on the ATP circuit, even the WTA side of things as well. And as always, guys, please like and subscribe for more life and tennis related content. Cheers, guys.